first question is, do you support universal access membership and why?
Yeah, I definitely support universal access membership. Basically, I think that the university students are in a position where they're being taxed once for SSAAF each semester, so they shouldn't have to pay twice for access membership as well as the SSAAF.
Cool. Second question, do you support affirmative action? Why or why not?
Yeah, I do. Before affirmative action was in place, there was a decade where there was no woman on the actual union board, and I think that's incredibly unfair. I think it has this really strong place. If you look at a lot of union elections, bar 2009, men usually poll higher than women. So I think it does have a really strong place. We need to encourage women to be involved.
Yeah. Okay. What is your attitude to fair trade, and have you signed the Fairly Educated contract?
I'm completely in favour of fair trade, so students voted 89.7%, as we all know. It's up to the board as a director to exercise the votes of the students, not to vote on their personal preference for what tastes better. I haven't signed the contract yet because I've sought advice, and it would be a breach of my fiduciary duties as a candidate to bind myself to a vote without having all the facts on the table. But I will walk into that meeting supporting fair trade, and I'll walk into it with a firm commitment to have that meeting out of camera, so that we can be the students can have some sort of accountability as to how their board votes and why they voted that way.
And when you say in support of fair trade, you mean fair trade certified fair trade?
Fair trade certified, yeah, in terms of coffee, yeah.
Yeah. So, moving beyond that, firstly, are you a member of any political party, and what do you see as the role of political parties in this election and on the union board in general?
Sure. Yep, I'm a member of the ALP. I have been for a little while, but basically I don't see that as any hindrance to me running at all. I'm not running as an ALP candidate. I'm not endorsed by any political party. I've got a lot of friends who are supporting me, and they're not a member of a political party at all. I don't see the union board as a political platform. I have seen the SRC as a political platform in that sort of sense, and I can see how it's become so politicised. But I've got friends who are in the Greens, in the Liberal Party and the Labor Party, and I don't really see how my membership of the ALP will affect my decisions, other than the fact that I believe that there should be equal access to a union, that student unions are really important. My belief that VSU is really going to has already destroyed many student organisations around the country. Yeah. And that's where my membership in the ALP has some sort of sway on my opinions of student unionism. But
so your membership informs your personal politics, is what you're saying to some degree?
I would say that on those sort of values, it's not that the party informs that. I joined for those reasons.
The ideology behind the party, though, would to some degree inform your
because you associate with it.
My values, I would attach to the ALP. I'm not going to vote according to a block, because there is no block of the ALP in the union. I'd be an independent. I found it interesting, in 2009, Honi Soit defined an independent candidate as someone not being run by a union board director, and I'm not being run by a union board director. I don't walk into it with a block of ALP supporters.
Sure, but you are being run by the head of the Labour Club and Unity, like, more generally at the university. Do you not still see that as being run by a particular faction? They
haven't endorsed me, so there was no actual, caucus system in the left. But no, I haven't been actually endorsed. But yeah, of course, they're playing a big part in my campaign, but as are a lot of independent people who aren't even a member of a
So whilst they may not have officially endorsed you, you would still be expecting to call upon kind of a lot of Labour faithful at this university to come out.
A lot of people who are like-minded with the sort of values that I have. A lot of people who see that a person who is a member of a political party has some sort of accountability. You know how they're going to vote. You know where they stand on certain issues. And I think that can actually be a bit of a plus when you contrast that with other candidates who don't put their political allegiances on the line.
So do you think that is problematic at the moment, where some people aren't as upfront as they should be about their factional backing, whether it be political or otherwise?
Yeah, I think it can. If you're being run by a faction, you should acknowledge the fact that you're being run by a faction. But I know that a lot of people, there are other candidates who are being run by a faction, but they've got a broad sort of appeal to other people, and they've got lots of friends who aren't in their political party.
Sure.
And I don't think that the union board should be looked as a really political body. If we start politicising the union, then nothing will ever get done of any worth. So,
Okay, so do you think it is problematic that some political parties have officially endorsed, like political parties on campus have endorsed specific candidates?
I don't think it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
There's a union, and political parties will obviously want to have some sort of say in that union. They're more aligned to get involved in activism and that sort of stuff. So I don't think it's problematic in that sense. I think it's problematic in the sense when someone doesn't put that allegiance on the line.
Cool.
Okay, so given your family's extensive involvement with both the Labour and union movements, essentially how are students supposed to view this as a kind of genuine interest in the union as opposed to a stepping stone to a wider political career in the Labour Party or the union movement?
Yep, sure. So basically I came to uni with about 5 friends from my school. I found it a very isolating experience. I found O Week very isolating, and I didn't really see the union as an avenue that I could become involved in. It was quite closed off and exclusive. And so in the second semester I started joining clubs and societies through a friend of mine who got me involved, and I've built a huge, all my friends at university have come from the clubs and societies network and getting involved through that avenue. And I've looked back at the moment now, this year, and I've thought, if I was a first year student again, how would I change things? How would I make the union more accessible, more exciting for students, much more engaging? And that's the main reason I'm running. I didn't have a community when I came into this university. I didn't go to college, or I wasn't in a share house or a residential college either. I came here without that sort of network, and that's something that I'd really like to foster on the union board. To have this union run much more like a community that is really accessible and engaging for students.
So you just mentioned the communities of college. Do you, and the fact that you're one of the only few people from your school, do you think that there are equal problems as perhaps there could be with factions in getting a specific base as there are with being someone who is lucky enough or wealthy enough to live at college, or someone who has gone to a school which has historically been a feeder school to this university and therefore perhaps confer certain privileges over other candidates?
Look, I think that it's really great that you've got college candidates running. It's really important. The problem with not having college candidates is that they are being isolated. And you see that with other student organisations at this university. And I don't think that's fair to block them off like that. But I do think that at the same token, for me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but me personally, I found it quite hard to build up a sort of friend network when I came to this university. And I would attribute it to the fact that I didn't go to one of the expensive independent schools or one of the feeder schools to this university. And I think that they've got a really great upper hand. And
I guess that's just what happens. With college as well, I mean, you mentioned that you thought it was good that they were being involved and they should be represented. Of course, no one is suggesting they shouldn't be. Do you think that they are potentially overrepresented, given that, or specifically St Paul's College has been overrepresented traditionally? Yes, Zach Thompson went to Johns, but beyond that, we've had, currently Nick Kaufman is running. In the past, Pat Bateman, Dave Mann, 2 union board candidates preceding Pat Bateman were members of St Paul's College. Shane Treves currently on board. Do you not think this is a staggering number of candidates to come from the one place? Does it represent
Given that the residential colleges represent less than 1,000 students from the entire university of 55,000?
I mean, when you look at the alumni of these colleges, these are the people who go on to do great things in society, and they generally become politicians or business leaders. So that's an obvious product of where they are, of the values that are instilled to them on those colleges. In terms of it being an issue,
and the financial standing necessary to be in that
to
position.
To be able to do it. That can be an issue. But by the same token, you don't want to isolate the colleges away from the network. So it's a really fine balance of how much engagement you allow these colleges to have.
Okay, next question. Why do you think there are so few candidates running for board this year, and do you think that is a positive thing or a negative thing, or how do you view that?
I think that the relevancy of the union came into a lot of question last year when we learned about the university proposing a takeover. That sort of brought into question how the longevity of the union, how long it's actually going to last, and you have the service level agreement, the SLA, expiring, and I think a lot of people started questioning, why should I get involved with a sinking ship? That was what a lot of people told me. They said, why are you getting involved with a sinking ship? But I think that students are generally not very aware of what the union's doing. They've got a blog, but they update that very, very rarely. I think that a lot of meetings need to be held out of camera. There needs to be more accountability measures. You need to have more open meetings where students are allowed to come in and not just open them up so that in the annual report you can say we had this many open, that you actually advertise these meetings to students. And I think that the awareness of students will grow through that. You've also got to improve the kind of services that we provide and the programs that we provide and make it a really exciting and engaging body.
Sorry, I'll just skip forward, given that you just said that. What ideas do you have to make the union's commercial operations a more sustainable and profitable venture?
Yep. So I'm also, one of my policies is basically considering subletting a lot of the facilities and the outlets that the union provides. That's been really successful when you look at a few services. To give the ingenuity that a business has over to an outlet, I think that's a really important step towards expanding the influence of the union. I think one of my other policies is having a competition for students to basically redesign Hermans in Manning. So students go to Hermans in Manning, they love it, I love it, and it's really cheap, all your friends are there, but it looks really drab. Students don't really find either of those bars aesthetically pleasing, so students are the ones inhabiting these bars, every day. Why shouldn't they have a say on what they look like and how they operate?
Sure. So, further to that, how do you view the negotiations that took place between the union and the university over the past 2 years, over the commercial services?
Yep. I think it was a good outcome in the end to receive SSAAF funding. But I also think that in terms of the campaign that was run, the Are You With Us campaign, it was basically 20 people in a really trendy shirt signing petitions, going around on the law lawns. And I think that there were a lot of people in the university community who really wanted to be a part of that, who wanted to be engaged with the campaign, but it was very exclusive and closed off. I myself raised that I wanted to be really involved in that campaign, and I was told that it was only for union board directors. And someone said that to me.
And it wasn't even run by a union board director.
Exactly, and I think that that's the problem with the union. It becomes an exclusive club, and it can't run that way. And I think that that's the danger of these kind of negotiations. If you keep students out of the loop, then you're going to run into troubles with the university saying, well, hey, we'll step in because we can be a voice for the student community.
Do you think the Are You With Us campaign was a campaign which was poorly targeted at people who were in no danger of being against the union? Like, it just patted people on the back who were already involved in the union and therefore...
Well, the main issue was that people were holding up placards saying, are you with us? Yes, I'm with you, I'm with the USU. Which is really good. It looks really good on a camera. You can put together lots of material. No material was put together. There needed to be a big information drive in this campaign, and there wasn't. There was a Facebook page, there were shirts, but you needed to actually inform the students about what's going on. One of the biggest things that you find when you talk to students, and I've found when I've talked to some of my mates that about me running for union board, is they say, well, what is the union? Like, what does it do? Why should I, join to access? You can't assume that students know these things, and I think that's what that campaign did.
Yeah, so that was where it sort of failed. Moving forward, what do you think of the SSAAF breakdown?
So the allocation between the different student groups,
yeah.
do you think it was fair? Do you think it was unfair? Is there anything you'd change about it?
Touching back on the college thing that you were talking about before, you look at the Sydney Uni Sports and Fitness facilities, which got the most SAAF funding. That is run by a group of very wealthy people. It's very well invested. It's already got a lot of money, and yet they received the biggest SAAF contribution from the university admin. And I think that's really unfair. Not the majority of more students use union outlets than they do the Sydney Uni Sports and facilities. And I think that it's
also very expensive to use.
Yeah, it is. And I think that it's very unfair, but it's obvious why Michael Spence did that.
You feel it reflects the vested interests of the
It reflects the vested interests of the hierarchy in the administration. I mean, you look at Michael Spence's background, Knox boy, all of that. It reflects their interests aligning with the interests of Sydney Uni Sports and Fitness.
Yeah.
And it also brings into question, the whole role of the university taking over the USU. Obviously, SAAF was a bargaining chip. That's how the university saw it. And that's why they gave more funding to the sports facilities.
Sure.
So do you think you're a good negotiator, and if so, why?
Yeah, I think I am. So I've been involved with the executive of the SRC, and I've been involved in negotiations that have happened there with different groupings. I've also been involved with negotiations on the SRC for free membership to the SRC. That's something that we successfully got through. So yeah, I've got some experience there in being able to negotiate also on a national level with the national peak body of students, the National Union of Students.
Just to stop you there quickly, John.
Yep.
You were talking about the fact that you have been involved on the SRC, obviously, and in negotiations there. We understand that you currently hold an executive position.
Yep.
Do you think there will be a conflict of interest with you in that executive position and the board if you were to be elected?
Yeah, I think that there definitely is a conflict of interest for someone who is running from the SRC and making the switch to the union. I don't think there's a conflict of interest whilst you're a candidate, but I've already made the pledge to a few in the SRC that I would resign if elected. There are two other people running who are on the executive of the SRC. One of them's the vice president. I know myself personally, I would not be able to handle both of them and put my all into both of them. And if I'm running for the union board, I want to put everything into the union board and everything into negotiating the best outcome from the union board for the union board. So that's why I would resign if elected from the executive of the SRC.
All right. So we've already talked about what ideas you have for the union's commercial operations, but what do you see as the purpose of the USU?
So the USU, I see, is basically the main food and beverage outlet provider for university students. It is there to facilitate a community of students, be they involved in clubs and societies or in open spaces that the university provides, ISL, the home building, and all the cafes and everything that are meeting points for students to connect with each other. And that's the main thing about the University of Sydney Union, and that's what makes it really great. It also fosters leadership in students. It also fosters a diverse range of students to explore a diverse range of talents, be it through debating or through clubs and societies. And that's the fundamental purpose of the union, to facilitate a really broad student community.
Okay. Moving past that, do you think you are qualified to be a sitting board member?
Yeah, I'd say I am qualified. I've been on the executive of a few clubs and societies over the past few years. I've been involved with quite a few. I've held events under the umbrella of the union. And basically in those roles I've learned how the clubs and society system works, how programs works, how the Department of Operations works, and the kind of intricacies involved in each of them. So I'd like to bring that wealth of talent, that talent that I've built up to the union board.
So what, in particular within the societies, they've had a decidedly political slant and moreover decidedly Labour heavy political slant, in that you are both on campus and off campus, involved in Labor. You're part of the Politics Society. You're part of the Model UN, which could be seen as political. And you've already spoken about your experience with the National Union of Students, a traditional Labor stronghold. Do you feel that this focus on not only on politics but also specifically on Labor politics will affect your ability to represent the entirety of the union's membership on what is typically an apolitical platform?
And while you have acknowledged before that different, obviously non-affiliated people are supporting your campaign, obviously the fact that you have been involved in so many of these clubs and societies, and you have mentioned that you have made friends through the CNS program, invariably a vast bulk of a lot of your campaigners will be affiliated with the Labor Party. Don't you think that therefore this has some sort of overall sway specifically on your involvement, and that therefore may blinker you to other aspects of the USU?
A sway in what sense?
In that it is your focus over perhaps other things?
No, I wouldn't say that's the case. Look, I became involved in these societies obviously because I'm politically aware. I read up on politics, and I'm a Labor Party member, as I've said before. But I think that the fact that I'm a Labor Party member involved in politics doesn't mean that that's going to sway me somehow on the union board. I'm running because I came to university and I found the university isolating, and I found something within the union that I had to search for, but that wasn't accessible to me from the outset.
So the fact that Todd Pinkerton is running you, who's a state convener for Labor and is higher than you are in the Labor hierarchy on campus, won't mean that you will have to follow directives or anything, or essentially be manipulated to the greater
So the
cause.
way that my side of the Labor Party, which is the right, I'm also being backed by the left as well, but my side, the way that they operate is that they don't caucus on anything. So I'm not going to go into board meetings, having people who aren't on this campus decide the policies that I believe in and what I stand up for. It's not about that. We don't caucus. We don't bind votes anyway. I'm running not because I have an agenda to be on exec, not because I have an exec or a person on my campaign team who's running for president. I don't. I'm not running to be a number for someone else. I'm running because I care about the union, and I'm not a part of a bloc, as other candidates are who are running.
What do you mean by that?
A lot of candidates who call themselves independent are running together as a bloc. They've got friends who are already on the union board, and most of those friends who are on the union board now are aspiring to be high up on the exec.
Would you name those members? Would you name those members running?
The members running?
Yeah, the people that you were specifically referring to.
Look, I won't, but I think it's pretty obvious who their friends are, and I'm sure it'll become apparent to everyone as the campaign moves on. Those people running for president or for vice president, and who they're backing in terms of candidates for this year.
That being said, although she is on the outgoing executive, you will essentially replace her take one of her seats if you are elected. Vivian Moxon Hall is the girlfriend of your campaign manager, Todd Pinkerton. So for you to portray yourself as having no connection to the board, whilst not directly impacting on the presidential vote, is slightly erroneous.
No, I'm not saying that I don't have a connection to the board. I definitely do, and I'll be open about it. I'm friends with Nay as well, and I'm also quite close with Asta. So I obviously have a connection in that avenue. But I'm not a part, so Nay and Viv are leaving this year. I'm not a part of a bloc that's trying to get someone to be president, or a part of a bloc I'm not aspiring myself to be an executive. I'm not here to be a number for someone else. I'm here to run for the union.
Okay. Which current board member do you admire the most, and why?
I would say first Mina Nada. I think that Mina's got a really great mind for finance, and I like a lot of the ideas that he's got in terms of driving the union forward. I think it's a very creative way of looking at finance, and I'd aspire to kind of to kind of really work closely with him on Union Board. That's something I'd really like to do. And I think on the other side of things, Asta as well. She ran a really great campaign last year, and I think that she adds a lot to the union.
Cool. Which of the other candidates do you think would make the best board director, and why?
I'd probably say that Hannah Morris would make a very good board director. So she's been really involved in clubs and societies. I think she's got a lot of experience that she'd bring on board. And I'd also say Sophie Stanton. I think that she's got that similar kind of social background, and one of my big things, my visions for the union, is to make it a much more exciting place, and I think that those two people would be really great on the union board.
Cool.
So now to finally, who will you vote for if you are elected to be on the union board for president?
Out of the candidates that I know that are currently running, I would vote for Asta. She's the only one who's approached me. I'm obviously not going to lock in my vote, but that is the person I would vote for at the moment.
Cool.
Okay, moving on to questions concerning your policies. On one hand, your policy statement says you want to open the tender for more food outlets on campus in order to have food that students want and food that will be commercially successful. Another one of your policy statements states you want multicultural meals for a multicultural campus and explicitly list having halal and kosher options for students. Will that, if found to be not the most commercially viable option or the most successful option or the option most polled by students, will you still deliver on that promise even though it is a concession on one of your other statements of your policy? As in, if halal and kosher commercial outlets are found to not be the most wanted by students, and by that I mean the cuisines associated with it, and or are not shown to have the best business model in comparison to other people applying for the tenders at the end of next year, would you preference that policy over your desire to have the most commercially successful or wanted outlets?
So I think there are two aspects to this. Firstly, the halal and kosher options. That would be something that you would provide through things like the university tents, the union tents. You basically have pre-packaged meals. I understand that you wouldn't, open a whole outlet that sells halal and kosher, but I think that that option really needs to be open to students who are from a Muslim or Jewish background. They should really have the option to be able to eat food that ascribes to their religious belief. In terms of the multicultural meals and having better quality food, that would come about through the actual outlets. So,
Tony, you believe.
yes.
Yeah, go on. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So, another question. You spoke about getting solar power for the union and said it is sustainable and saves money. Have you actually looked into the financing or possibility of installing solar panels? Do you know for a fact that this would be the best economic choice for the union?
So, in terms of that comes under a broader umbrella of my vision to have a more environmentally sustainable campus. Union campus. So basically in the Constitution, one of the regulations say that the university will always, the union will always look to having environmentally sustainable outcomes. Solar panels is one option, and that's something that you would probably have on Wentworth. That's where it would be most able to be put on. In my discussions with the CEO on this issue, he basically said to me that it would be feasible to do, but to do it on a building like Wentworth, obviously you can't do it on Home and Manning. That is where the union started their heritage buildings, and you've got legal complications there. But some other things that I've been looking at, I recently spoke to the person who's refitting all the lights in City of Sydney. So there are tens of thousands of lights being refitted now to environmentally sustainable outcomes. That's something that I'm also open to look at. It's a cost-effective way. You just change a light bulb, and it lasts up to 30 years longer.
In regards to one of your policies, faith space, you talk about, obviously that faith-based societies have quite high memberships and play an important role on campus. But, and you propose, expanding or, what exactly is it? Expanding or, improving the space open to faith-based societies. do you not feel that as a secular institution, educational institution, although of course there should be some room made for it, to unduly preference this is to kind of polarise yourself as a religious candidate?
So would you suggest that we have an atheist room as well? I mean, we've already got an Islamic prayer room that the university provides. We've got a chaplaincy network. We've got a prayer room that the university provides in Old Teachers College. It's tiny. You can fit about 20 people in the room. So why shouldn't the union get involved in that? The union is the space, it's the place that has all of these huge clubs and societies like SUMSA or just the EU. You've got these huge societies that bring in heaps of members each year at O Week. They should have a space on campus that caters for their religious events, for any speaking events they have, but also for a prayer service that they may want to undertake. And I think that in the redesigning of the bottom level of home that's going on right now, I think that there are opportunities open for a convertible prayer space for these societies to operate out of.
Cool. Do you have do your last one?
No.
Oh, I was going to say we'll just finish it there.